Harley, a few words?
Let her grieve. I've prepared a little something.
Welcome, one and all, Gothamites, to the season finale of the Arkham Sessions. My name is Brian Ward. Joining me, as always, is the psychologist to the superheroes, superheroines, and supervillains of Gotham City and beyond. She's Dr. Drea Letamendi. Hello, Drea.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I am doing very well. We have made it through another season. We have now seen every episode of season 1 of Max's Harley Quinn. And we are ready to talk about that. Before we do that, though, we have a few little household chores that need to be done first. I think the first thing that we do, we go back to a couple of episodes ago.
Okay.
Where you and I ripped into the local escape room company at Universal City Walk, Escapology, who did a Batman-themed escape room, which you and I both felt could have been really cool, but wasn't. And we suspected that a number of issues that we had actually had to do more with the folks running the room than the room itself. And it turns out that as of this week, that is confirmed, right?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about how this confirmation came about.
Well, somebody reached out to us after being sent that episode of the show, and I just want to protect his privacy. I'm not going to name names here, but you did mention Escapology. They are not from Escapology. They are someone involved with the building and the design of this particular escape room, the Batman escape room. And we did speak with this individual who actually was very delightful and very interested in hearing our experiences and getting our feedback about the room when we kind of went through in more detail about what problems we had and where we thought things went wrong. I would say on my end, at least mechanically, things didn't function. And you suspected also that things weren't functioning in an optimal way in those rooms. And they were so delightful and so kind and just spent some time speaking with us, apologizing and taking that feedback very seriously, very, with just diligence about the next steps on their end. And it was really nice to hear from them. And again, it's a good room aesthetically. Yeah. It just didn't play out the way we wanted.
Yeah, we had a lovely time chatting with him. I really appreciate him taking that time to jump on with us because, as you mentioned, this person is not from Escapology, but but is a high up, I would say, in the company that installs this room, and took us through what the room should have been. Turns out that whole back third was not set up properly. Not by this company, but by the Escapology room runners. So it blew my mind, but me too. I love to know how things work. I love to look into that. We know a number of folks, good friends of ours, who do similar things for film and television. I love going to their shops and seeing how these things work. So this conversation in particular was kind of a delight for me. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't have been more pleasant. They invited us out to see their studio, should we ever be in that part of the country. And who knows? That's a distinct possibility, especially now that an invitation has been put down on the table.
And hopefully the room we had complaints about will be fixed, will be cared for and updated. It sounds like things weren't right up to speed when we had had been in the escape room. So I actually do recommend it if folks are at City Walk or they're planning on being in Los Angeles or at Hollywood Studios and Universal Studios.
Right.
And they want to check out the Batman escape room. I still say, hey, check it out. See for yourself.
Check it out. See if it works. So thank you for that. It's always nice to come back to conversations that we've had in our show. Another piece of sort of chores that we have to do. You and I have decided. We don't have
to do. We get to do.
Well, I'm sorry, that we have to announce.
We get to
announce our next phase. So as always, we put our a vote out to our patrons. And this was going to determine what we cover next. We are not taking that away from our patrons. At the end of the show, we'll let you know how all of that went down. The 3 different choices were Andor, the complete series, Gargoyles season 1, and X-Men season 2. We have results to that poll. We will let you know at the end of the show. But that is not what we're going to be immediately going on to next, because Drea had an idea. And I would say, having known Drea for as long as I've known her, if you ever want to get to her heart, it's through science fiction movies. And I would even say, going so far as if it's on a spaceship or underwater, yes. with a creature of some kind. So yes. We're talking Alien, we're talking Leviathan, the Abyss. Drea can't get enough of sci-fi. Would we say sci-fi horror? Like you're not really you're not a traditional horror fan.
I would say psychological sci-fi or sci-fi thriller.
Okay.
Or suspense, because it's always, what intrigues me is, when humans are out in undiscovered spaces.
I can't tell you how many movies we've seen with the title Mars in it.
Right. I will rewatch every movie about Mars, except The Martian for some reason.
Well, because that one's not psychological science so much as it's just hard science of here's how you make a potato.
Right. And I don't want that. I want that potato to become a creature and it starts attacking people. I'm into.
I do appreciate that your idea of psychological science is something becomes a creature and attacks.
There's just more to it than that. But yes, so want to give some credit to one of our listeners, Peter, who reached out to me and sent me a note and said, "Hey, I've just seen a science fiction movie. It made me think that maybe the Arkham Sessions should cover it." So I decided to work with you, Brian, on creating a mini series, almost like a summer mid-season, sub-season, mini-season of our show called Summer of Sci-Fi. Sci-fi spelled P-S-Y, F-I. And I think it's okay to name that the movie that inspired this mid-season series is 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to start with.
Could I ask why that one? Like what inspired it for you? How well do you know 2001: A Space Odyssey? Yeah. Like what is it about that particular film that you were like, yeah, I want to dive into that
Well,
one?
This is an easy answer because our listener suggested that movie.
Okay.
And then when I thought about it, I do recall seeing it many years ago, and
so you may not even remember.
I don't remember the middle chunk, but I do remember the very beginning and the end. And so I'd like to see it with kind of a fresh pair of eyes. I think I was much younger when I saw it and was interpreting it in a different way. So I'd love to interpret it for our show and psychologize it a bit, for better or worse. Maybe there's something there that will be fascinating to us.
I mean, look. You're talking about Stanley Kubrick. I think there's probably a lot to dive into there. So
I think it'll be fun. What I will say is that we have chosen 5 films, starting with that film, that span 5 decades.
I was going to say, are you going to give away okay.
I'm not going to say what other movies we're covering, but I will say we're covering the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and the aughts. So we'll try to cover movies through a long period of time so that we have like an enrichment around science fiction and how it's evolved. But also these movies kind of tie in together, and we'll get into that when we talk about the actual movies. But
yeah, we do know the movies. We're not asking for ideas for what movies to cover from those decades. However, I would love to hear your guesses. So please let us know. And by the way, we'll be taking those guesses as tips for future incarnations of something like this. If there's, honestly, at any given moment, at the drop of a hat, Drea could suddenly decide she wants to watch a psychological thriller or a sci-fi adventure, and she's going to want to talk about it. So we are happy to take the recommendations of our listeners. But just so you know, we have decided what 5 movies we're going to cover, and this is going to be the next 5 episodes between this one and what we are officially covering next as selected by our patrons.
Right.
So you're looking at what, July through September, Drea? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 5
About 10
episodes
weeks.
every other week. And we should say this. Maybe we can tell them the format of this hybrid incarnation of the show.
It is experimental, multimedia, and that's all I'm going to say about that. You're welcome to say more about that if you want to.
Just okay. So you're not wanting to necessarily keep it a secret so much as
I just don't know how it will work.
So here's what we're going to attempt, and this is we are literally saying attempt because we have not tried this yet, but we are going to do a watch along. And it's going to be like your standard YouTube reacts videos, but we will be stopping to talk about what we know about the film. In my case, I might be bringing the Hollywood history to the film. In your case, you are going to be stopping to talk about the psychological science as you see it. And that is what's going to sort of differentiate. And then at the end of that episode, we are going to do a little bit more of a thorough breakdown of what you had seen as we finally sort of wrap up our review of the film.
Right.
So, I highly recommend that folks come join our YouTube channel. You can find us. We are The Arkham Sessions, because there might be different iterations. Obviously, a podcast version of a React video does not work quite as well. So there might be a couple of different versions of each episode where if you're on YouTube, you can watch us react to the film sort of live, not live, but in real time.
Yep.
And then our analysis will come afterward. And if you're just listening to the podcast, you might just get that last little analysis, which could be, 20, 30-minute episode. But these are meant to be a bridge between our seasons. These aren't necessarily meant to be the next incarnation of our show. It's just a little bit extra that we're tacking on for our listeners.
I thought it would also be a little bit fun to do a deeper dive into science fiction. We've covered some science fiction and fantasy before.
Sure.
With Star Trek and Star Wars. And I also feel like this is a time for us, no matter where you are on Earth, that maybe a little escapism could be healthy for us. Just dipping into some of those stories that allow us to get outside of our current experience, get some perspective, maybe a little bit of healing.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun, I promise. I will say that all these are live action films. Many of them I've either not seen or it's been forever since I've seen them. So I plan to dive in, and I plan to have a lot to say.
There's one in particular that you definitely have not seen.
Yes.
And you have been kind of itching to, but you've also been scared of.
Yes.
And maybe for some listeners, for some keen-eared listener out there, they probably know exactly what movie we're talking about. But
there's a science fiction movie I keep wanting to see, but I'm scared. There's another movie that everybody seems to like, and I've kind of hated it and so stayed away from it.
That's true.
So yeah, a lot of I'm hoping to.
You admit though that you've hated it having not actually seen the entire movie.
That's okay. I have the right.
Right.
So this is not like Clockwork Orange style where you're forcing me to watch anything. I'm willing. I actually.
Although let's watch that one and talk about the psychology. Let's talk about A Clockwork Orange.
I'm willingly choosing and enthusiastically choosing to watch these movies.
Okay.
Okay. So we are good with announcements, right?
I think so. Yeah. Right. I think until the end, where we'll talk about our poll. Do you want to jump into our finale, the final joke?
Yes.
All right. So at the end of our last episode, Harley had basically renounced her membership with the Legion of Doom. And in the battle that took place afterward, eventually Poison Ivy was struck down. She died. She straight up collapsed. A spear had gone through her. She bled out and she passed away in the arms of Harley Quinn, where her green blood laid around her. Suddenly flowers popped up. And that's kind of where we pick up. It's after the battle has happened. They have dug a grave, or they're digging a grave for Poison Ivy, basically exactly where she fell.
So this is where I had to pause it because I recognized that the Joker had basically made his headquarters in the old Legion of Doom, facility.
Yeah.
And there's a giant Joker head. It's all Jokered out, if you know what that means, just elaborate, over the top circus level. And
again, it's a big tower, purple and green, and on top of the tower is a gigantic fabrication of the Joker's head.
So Clayface performs this eulogy, and they're putting Poison Ivy into a grave.
And what's he quoting from that eulogy?
He's quoting Wrath of Khan. Yes, it's a thing.
Yeah.
But they're putting her into the grave, and it's it's so sorrowful. But then in the back, you can see the Joker's headquarters.
The tower is still there. Yeah.
It's strange. It's really off-putting. I'm like, is that where Poison Ivy wants to be laid to rest? In the place, pretty much in the park where she passes away. I just thought it was.
It's where all the trees are in Gotham City.
True.
So maybe that's what she would have wanted. They also point out the fact that on the headstone it simply says Pamela Isley. Right. It does not have her doctor listed there, and Dr. Psycho takes it upon himself to chisel the D and the R in front of Pamela.
I hadn't really thought about this. Are you wanting to put doctor on my headstone?
You want a headstone? Huh. Oh, well, that's new. I mean, maybe. I'm kidding. It really has nothing to do with my personal plans for you. What do you want? Let's put this out into the world right now so that it's on tape. Are you wanting
I thought you
doctor?
Meant let's put it to a vote. Let's put it on Patreon.
Are you wanting doctor put onto your headstone, or are you wanting a comma and PhD at the end of your name? What are you looking for?
What do people do? I haven't really thought that far ahead.
I mean, look, you got some time. I think we can make that decision later. But I've never known a doctor to not want to be known as doctor at some point.
I've never known a doctor to have that on their headstone though. So I
don't know too many doctors with headstones yet. So we'll see. But
well, it was a moment of levity on the episode where the crew notices, hey, doctor's not on her headstone. Who's like, we got whoever's etched this. It
was sort of levity, but it was also, I think, pretty good character development. I think it showed that the team respected her so much. Yes. As one of them, that they wanted to make sure this honor, which she had rightfully earned over the course of her life, was represented on a headstone. I think it shows the growth that each of these very selfish people, when we first met them, save maybe King Shark. King Shark's never really been selfish. King Shark just likes being involved with the group. But it does show a little bit of a growth, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think that of all the members of the crew, she is the person who's the most logical, planful, thoughtful. Everyone, it's a ragtag team. Everyone kind of has their problems. And she's not perfect, but I think it does mean they recognize her value, like you're saying. And I think it does mean they see that she's more than just a member of the team, or she's more than an eco-terrorist, someone who's just a villain or a rogue, that she has this purpose. And it was important to her too. So
now we know that when Dr. Psycho passes away, his tombstone may simply read Psycho if there isn't someone there to make sure that first
And
part.
that's a strange thing to put on a headstone.
Right.
Well, they end up, some terrible things happen. I'm not even sure where to start. Maybe we'll start with Batman.
Okay, let's start with Batman.
So Harley decides that
the only way to really get to Joker
yes,
is
I'm thinking
with
of the
Batman.
order of things.
Yeah.
So she ends up coming to see Batman, but she kind of leverages the fact that Jim, the commissioner, is able to get Batman onto the top of a building, assuming that's the top of the GCPD building, and the three of them end up talking about how to take the Joker down. So Harley has this plan that involves the Batman, and I'd say it's actually kind of a good one.
Yeah. But Batman prefers to work alone.
Yes, this is true.
So it doesn't exactly. We do cut away from that moment, though, where Batman is handcuffed with Harley. She has brought a gift to the Joker, which is his arch nemesis. And Joker is impressed by this until in the singing of Happy Birthday to the Joker, because Batman is supposed to be his birthday gift, Batman can't help but to sing along, which is a very out of character bit for Batman. And that's when we realize that Clayface is currently disguised as Batman. Meanwhile, Batman has parachuted from the Batwing and is now infiltrating the tower from above, alternately, right? The Joker seems adequately prepared, gets into a little dome to protect himself as he releases a green gas into the room. It knocks Batman out. Now Batman is officially a hostage of the Joker. Batman is not getting out of this one alone. And the Joker spends a significant amount of time. I mean, I'm getting the impression, days?
Yeah.
Days with Batman hanging from a rope. Basically, the Joker's plaything. He is tasing him on a regular basis. He finds it amusing. He has not removed the cowl. He doesn't really know or want to know who is under the cowl until another former member of the Legion of Doom, Scarecrow, comes in and does it for him. It's revealed that it's Bruce Wayne, and this really upsets the Joker. By the way, this is pretty consistent with the man who killed Batman in Batman the Animated Series, where the Joker gets really upset that someone went and did something, because to him, it's not about who's under the cowl. It's simply Batman versus the Joker. And without Batman there, and without the aura of mystery around him.
He does say that. He says it's the mystery that compels him. That is the, fuel that keeps the energy of this relationship, this really unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
In the backdrop, meanwhile, Gotham City is completely chaotic. It's under all this turmoil. The Joker.
There's like a little army of Joker.
Yeah,
there's a Joker army militarized going through the city.
It's sort of the level of chaos that I think maybe the Nolan films were trying to build up to, where the city is taken over by a psychotic villain, in this case the Joker, who is torturing people in his headquarters. So he's torturing Harley's crew. He's, like you said, he's keeping Batman roped up, tied up, torturing him on a daily basis. But the city is in complete turmoil.
And we should say that everyone was captured except Harley. Like Harley was left, she was able to acrobatically escape the large robotic arms that took the rest of her crew. Yeah, so she's on her own. Ultimately, it all comes down to the end when the Joker says, look, I'm going to capture you and I'm going to basically throw you back into the vat of acid where I created you. And that is going to uncreate you.
I think we've got to, what's helpful is at least here understanding his motive for not killing her, but throwing Harley into a vat of acid yet again.
He wants to erase her identity.
He wants to sort of like undo her, to erase her sense of self. He wants Harley Quinn to go away.
He does come right out and say, this is your fault because you made me fall in love with you.
Yes.
Now I need to, it's not enough to break up with you or kill you. I need to erase you.
Right. So, once again, that is a form of his sickness, right? That's the externalizing of blame, saying to the other person, it's your fault I'm this obsessed. It's your fault I'm this ill. It's your fault I can't move on. And that you made me fall in love with you. Yeah. It's very deranged. It's very distorted. And it's a part of his diagnosis, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about. But he ends up putting that on her and deciding that he needs to eliminate her. I think just even further back, as the Scarecrow is telling him, I don't understand. You've got it all. You're uncut. You're like, we can know who Batman is. You've got control of the city. You have everyone's crew here. You have everything you want. Why are you, what's missing? Why are you literally bored? And I want you to play that clip of the Joker explaining that, it's not just the chaos and disruption, that he says even when that's over, he needs more of it.
Yeah.
So can you play that little clip of him saying that?
Yep, here we go.
After Harley and I got disruptive, you know how we'd celebrate?
Fondue?
Fondue? No! By getting more disruptive, like kidnapping Gordon and eating sushi off his lumpy, naked body. I was picking hair out of my teeth for weeks.
And I think they've really captured his psychology really well here, because he's saying, this isn't the kind of violent offender who engages in criminal activity because of impulse, because they can't control their senses and they have to have the thing. It's that he enjoys the thrill of it. He enjoys the act of it. He needs to have that in his body, in his brain. It's almost like an addiction. And for him to say, look, I have all these things. I'm really never going to be happy unless I'm with that person who is continuously disruptive with me. I need to be in constant disruption. Yeah. But the problem with that is that Harley Quinn doesn't like him back anymore. Right. She doesn't want to be in that. She knows that's unhealthy. Right. So what does he decide to do? He decides to not kill her because he doesn't want. This was a strange thing he said. He didn't want his morality to be impacted by that. He didn't want to perseverate on the fact that he's killed that person that he loved. Right. But he'd rather just erase her identity and blip her out so that he no longer has to worry about her, worry about her as a distraction, and she's out in the world. And
he sort of introduces kind of a nightmare situation where he pulls out the old Harley Quinn outfit, something that represents a traumatic life for Harley, and insists that she wear it, and she throws it back into his face. And then eventually she does put it on, because ultimately for her, and I thought this was good too, because she did it she did it willingly. No one forced her to wear it. I mean, they are to some degree, but it's almost like she's like, fine, give it to me. I'm going to put it on. This is not going to do to me what you think it's going to do. Because even when she puts the outfit back on, she's like, now what do you want me to do? Call you pudding, do this, do that. Like she's sort of like the costume does not make me who I am, no matter how much you're trying to make me feel like it does. So she's sort of taking ownership of it. And I felt like that was a first really good, authentic move for Harley throughout the season, because usually when she's in the room with Joker, she becomes a little, a little bit of a puddle.
That's his manipulation. I think he felt like, if I put you in your old Harley Quinn suit, you're going to regress back to this relationship that we had together.
And she does not.
And she doesn't. And I agree with you. It's pretty powerful when she says, like, I'll put it on because I have to save my crew, which is what he's basically, making her do.
And this is also that step where she's not thinking about herself and about the Joker. Like, she's not trying to figure out, how can I make this about me killing the Joker? Right. Or beating the Joker. It's, I am legitimately here to save my crew.
Mm-hmm. And he lets them go.
Yeah.
So he's true to his word, which is unlike him. But you're right. That's not as important as getting her to put on the suit and potentially slide back into that interpersonal relationship with him, where he can feel that sense of empowerment. He can be abusive toward somebody and still continuously get that thrill.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because when Batman is tied up and unable to fight back, the Joker no longer really gets a thrill from that. It's not satisfying to have him captive. It's not satisfying to relate to him and talk to him. In fact, like you said, he doesn't even want the mask off because he doesn't want to know who he is.
Yeah.
So there's this need for a relationship, a back and forth, and it's clear that this Batman in this iteration isn't playing. Like, this Batman isn't as interested as other Batmans to be in that relationship. So I kind of like that they backgrounded, like they left that as not an option,
right? Because
then Harley Quinn becomes the only option for the Joker to satisfy himself with this manipulative relationship style that he really needs. So
the plan ultimately is to push her into the vat, where it's hypothesized that she will revert back to the Dr. Harleen Quinzel version of her, that the pasty skin, the clownish appearance that seems to be something you get from swimming in this particular vat, will no longer, like, it's going to reverse the effects. I don't know how that works, but I also don't know how acid works in Gotham City or at Ace Chemicals or wherever they are doing this particular thing. So that is the plan, that I'm going to make you just like everyone else. Not only am I going to erase this identity, I am going to make it so that as you're walking through the streets of Gotham, you are a nobody to everyone around you. Whereas she is one of the more recognizable people walking through Gotham today. So I'm curious. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but because we are a psychology podcast, I want to ask you, would re-experiencing a trauma that did something to you like that have any effect in, quote unquote, normalizing you?
I mean, some of this is comic book fantasy,
right?
In that, no, being dropped into a vat of acid doesn't undo the set of, it doesn't undo the series of neurobiological, psychological derangement and traumatization and identity shifts that happened to Harley in the first time she was dropped in the vat.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is that, yes, obviously being pushed into a vat and being traumatized by the person that you trust and love in and of itself can change your psychology. You mistrust other people that you're close to. You get hypervigilant. You get very independent. You're constantly looking over your shoulder. That could change your psychology significantly. But it's my understanding that the comic book fantasy here is that there's something in the acid that also interacts with your neurobiology, and that changed something for her.
Yeah.
And it changed her appearance too. We've talked in the past about how a character like Two-Face, once he looks like a monster, people will treat him like a monster, and he starts to internalize that. So the real Harley was already somewhat narcissistic, as we talked about, somewhat a person who would break rules, somebody who wanted to do great things like treat the Joker, the most, quote, insane inmate in Arkham.
So you're talking about Harleen, pre-Harley.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she already had some, like a predisposition, some pre-existing personality factors that led her to become Harley Quinn. But
so was she also, would you suggest that he was able to manipulate her to the point that she may have been also brainwashed to a degree, that he was doing everything he needed to do to get her there, to take that predisposition and just push her over that edge? Literally and figuratively?
I don't know what you mean. Do you mean that yes, he preys after people who are vulnerable that way.
But it's not like she's not a Dr. Crane type who was clearly already over the edge, was already sort of going toward that path of evil.
You could say it like sociopathy.
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't want to start pulling words out, but
you could say, they say it in this episode.
Sure. So she was not there. She was someone trying to help, and she was someone who believed that she could do it. And he then took that part of her and, I would say, even brainwashed her to a point that she became his number one hench person, that, she then turned to crime and all of that. I wouldn't say the vat of acid did that to her. I would think that she was already sort of there by the time she was standing atop the catwalk. So yeah, I that's what I meant was, do you think the acid did it, or do you think that he had already done that to her by the time she got there?
I think it's a number of factors, including who Harleen was to begin with. Then it's the development of her sense of self, her personality in relation to the Joker, right? Because you're right, even before she gets pushed into the vat the first time, she's starting to bond with him in a very unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And she's starting to see herself. It's that attachment has allowed her to almost give her permission to be antisocial, even though that's not who she was to begin with. But that's how he showed her love. And then, as we know, because of her traumatic history, she really needed validation to be seen, to be loved.
Yeah.
So she kind of morphed into a lawless, Gotham rogue, even though that's not really who she was at heart.
Yeah.
Now, the vat of acid, I think, did kind of, I don't know, hyperbolize, like kind of sparked some, in a catalysmic way, her performance of Harley Quinn, and to kind of transition her to become Harley Quinn. And now to be thrown into the acid again and be told that's going to make you, quote, normal. To me, it seemed like a bait, like, you know what I mean? Like some kind of weird challenge. Mm-hmm. But I think he truly does mean it, that he wants to erase her. He wants to scrub her from his mind.
Yes.
And that's the only thing he can think to do.
Yeah. Okay.
I do want to talk, we're mentioning a couple of characters, and it's the Joker who is being called out a couple of times.
I wanted to bring that up. I didn't know when to do it within the course of the episode. I was going to do it toward the end, but typically, and we've been this way throughout the podcast, starting in the beginning, we played around with the idea of actually giving diagnoses to folks, but you explained that that's something that you're not, super comfortable doing because they're not someone that you see on, like you don't have enough information. And plus, if you start, as you've said in the past, if you start throwing around real terms, that's when things can get slippery slope.
We have mentioned diagnoses a lot actually on the show. And, and by the way, it's okay to use these terms and to recognize patterns that we have words for. It's important to use our classification in psychiatry and psychology to be able to predict behavior and better understand and treat behavior. It's totally fine. On our show, we only do it either when it comes up on in the content,
right,
so that we can kind of pick that apart,
right,
or if it's glaring and I need a way to talk about it,
to explain it to the audience. Right. Yeah, sure. And in this case,
it comes up a lot.
They mentioned 2 or 3 times. They give a diagnosis to the Joker. And this is the first time this has happened in this season. Yeah. So, Drea,
I wonder if you can actually play Harley's
version, because she has a little bit of an extended version of it. Yeah, sure. I've got that here. All right, let's take a listen.
Harley, I've got the city by the balls. The cops are mine. Batman's tied up and gagged. I have everything a man could want. But I'm not happy. And do you know why?
Because you're a textbook sociopathic narcissist with a chemical imbalance in your parasympathetic nervous system!
Hey, that's what Batman said!
So both Batman and Harley tell Joker to his face, you have this problem. You are a sociopathic narcissist. That's their diagnosis. And even Batman uses this term. This is not a diagnosis, but it's a term and a framework in psychology that we use to describe somebody who has 2 cluster B diagnoses. So we're back in cluster B.
We talked about cluster B before, right?
So the 2 diagnoses that I referred to here are narcissistic personality disorder,
which we just talked about
on the last episode.
In the last episode, yeah.
And antisocial personality disorder. Which some people just
talked about a lot.
Yeah, some people just say sociopathy or sociopath.
Right.
So antisocial personality disorder, when it co-occurs with narcissistic personality disorder, can really create a type of ongoing personality profile that is someone who manipulates and harms others for their personal gain. So you have like that combination of that grandiosity, sense of superiority, that's the narcissism, right? Above and beyond kind of our everyday egotistical person that you might come across, but somebody who truly has severe grandiosity, truly treats other people terribly, doesn't care for them, doesn't have empathy for them. They're entitled. They go above and beyond for their own gain, and they're very, very selfish. And then people who have antisocial personality disorder, they'll steal, they'll lie, they'll be manipulative. They believe they're above the law. They actually don't really care for the law at all. And so when you have this combination of symptoms, you really have this formula of a very unreliable, very dangerous, violent criminal. This is somebody who will do pretty much anything, even kill, in order to profit, and in some ways kind of believe that they deserve that. So
and obviously when you say profit, you're not talking monetarily all the time. You're this could also just benefit this person. They could feel good about having done it. They could, there are other words.
Right. I mean, profit,
or other definitions of profit.
Fulfillment.
Yes.
And in Joker's case, fleeting fulfillment. It doesn't last a very long time. We'll get to why. But psychopathy, which is coming up a lot in this episode, think of that as a more severe antisocial personality disorder, where someone with antisocial personality disorder may disregard the law, may mistreat people, they'll be in abusive relationships, you might think of most people who are incarcerated might have some element of this impulsivity. Whereas psychopathy, they completely lack empathy for other people, have superficial charm, high levels of manipulativeness, and lack remorse. So think of like a Charles Manson. So I was going to ask you how much you know about Charles Manson, but Charles Manson has both that narcissistic personality traits and the antisocial personality or sociopathy traits, where they truly have their own way of being and have that grandiosity about themselves, even have followers that do their bidding, and they think they're kind of above the law, and so they break the law and they act in violent ways.
Okay.
And is that I'm trying to think of someone in the real world who would kind of it's such a rare combination.
I can think of somebody. Do you think
Charles Manson? You could think of somebody?
Yeah, I'm just not going to say who it is.
Oh.
I can think of somebody.
Okay. Yikes. I see where you're going with that. So a very rare combination and a very serious mental illness. Think of this as untreatable. Think of this as somebody who doesn't even recognize lack of introspection, lack of self-awareness. They don't recognize that they have this problem.
So that was going to be my question for you. So you're saying untreatable. So you're saying someone who gets this diagnosis of psychopathy, there's nothing we can do for this person? Or
Harley also mentions a piece of this that is helpful for us as we discuss it. She says that Joker has this parasympathetic nervous system chemical imbalance or something like that.
Yeah.
And what she's getting at there, what I believe she's getting at there, is that the Joker has the kind of nervous system that is very understimulated. So has to have constant edginess, thrill-based, seeking danger, seeking uncertainty. That's the kind of personality that he has, or he will simply be bored. And he says to the people around him, the city's chaotic. I'm literally electrocuting Batman who's tied up in my lair, and I'm fucking bored.
Yeah.
Now, that has a lot to do with his neurobiology, like the literal chemistry in his brain. And I thought about a couple things. One is that we've been watching, you may know where this is going, but we've been watching this show called Love After Lockup.
Yes.
How would you I want you to describe Love After Lockup. What is Love After? What is this show?
It's ridiculous. It's and for those of you not watching on YouTube, I'm using air quotes, a reality show.
Sure. Some of it is very real.
Where it is men or women who have fallen in love with inmates, usually through like a letter writing or email writing, pen palship, relationship. And now these inmates have gotten out of prison, and we are following them as they are trying to adapt back into society. And usually it turns out that the people who fell in love with them, who are already on the outside, are the ones who are a little more on the ridiculous side, believing that these people who have been in prison in many cases for 16 years, one person was, could just simply get out of prison and immediately make their lives centered around the person that fell in love with them. And so there is an intense number of very produced moments and pieces of drama to the point that I don't know how much of the show actually is real. But you have managed to actually pick up on it. I think it's also because you can't watch anything and turn off the psychology part of your brain.
And what have I always said about the folks that get out of prison, get out into the world, and of course they're being filmed for this reality show, so it's a little bit heightened, but they always get in trouble again. So it is frustrating to watch this because it's as if they have difficulty controlling their impulses. And that's not, and the reason I pointed out is that most people who are incarcerated for violent crimes do have an impulse problem where they have the inability or they have challenges with self-determination, with patience, with, just following standards and rules and laws in order to be successful for themselves. So for instance, somebody may not be able to wait for their paychecks to come. They'd rather just steal the car in the moment because they're they lack that control of their impulses.
Well, and in this case, we see, in the case of the love of after lockup, we've seen that in many cases, the former inmates feel like they've been under someone's thumb for so long that now they just want to experience the freedom, and the people who have now accepted them into their lives post lockup are trying to control them, and that's the last thing they want. They're like, no, I now have the freedom that I've been wanting for so long, but I still feel locked up because of you, and so it just pushes that need for them to rebel further, faster.
And so one can argue it's not so simple as lack of impulsivity, that's one piece of this, that there's other elements there like possibly some narcissism, possibly some antisocial personality traits where there's a sense of thrill or a sense of satisfaction from getting away with breaking the law. And going back to the Joker and what Harley said about the Joker's chemical imbalance, is that he is less likely to suffer from these personality disorders that he has because of his impulsivity. I actually think the Joker has more control over his impulses and can be planful and can be patient and can delay gratification. I think he's more on the side of needing to have that neurobiological thrill. So it's more about, yes, it's the control, but it's more about the nervous system, this sense of thrill that he needs to have because he's so understimulated.
Yeah.
So there are studies to back up what Harley's saying, in that folks who have this kind of psychopathy with antisocial personality disorder have a brain imbalance. It's typically in their, I'm pointing to my head, but of course for the audio folks, it's in the striatum. The striatum is a cluster of nuclei. This is a processing center where we make decisions. We're managing emotions. A lot of important things happen. It's subcortical. It's really internal in our brains. And the idea is that in that part of the brain, with folks who have this disorder and who are prone to violent criminality, that is where the chemical imbalance happens. That is where the lack of inhibition happens based on those chemicals. And that really well describes the Joker. Now, so Harley is actually correct in saying you have this, like, you have a cluster B problem, like you're constantly trying to gain and you're constantly abusing other people. But some of the reasoning for that is that he's chemically understimulated, and that's why he's constantly doing all these chaotic things in Gotham City. And I noticed that this Joker is just for the thrill. This isn't like, do you think this Joker is going to write a manifesto? He has no like long, thoughtful set of ideologies about Gotham City and about his positionality there. If this were Heath Ledger's Joker, there would be a manifest. There would be some long descriptive explanation of why he's doing what he's doing.
But even in that incarnation, I think in both incarnations, if they were to become all powerful and say the ruler of Gotham City, they would get bored,
dissatisfied
as well.
Yes, completely. I agree with you on that. So this Joker, it's not that he's simple. It's just that he's all about the senses, and each thing he's pursuing is lackluster. Yeah, including what happens at the very end, where Harley doesn't get scrubbed from his life. She gets rescued by Poison Ivy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Poison Ivy, as Harley is looking at the vat. She sees that it's starting to become overgrown with vines, and those vines then start to blossom flowers, which is a signal to Harley that everything's going to be okay. Harley says, let me jump in myself. Let me make this one last decision for myself. And he allows her to do so. She turns around, and in a very Alien 3 Sigourney Weaver style, she just sort of falls backward into the vat, and Joker notices there's no splash, and that's when he turns around, and the vines have lifted Harley up, and now we see a revived Poison Ivy lifted up by the vines as well. And it turns out that the nourishing earth around her is what brought her back, and maybe a tear or two from Harley. So we learn a little something about Ivy, that that the earth can actually revive her, and ultimately everything comes crumbling down. The Joker is sent into the vat of acid himself. The tower is blown up when he reemerges from the vat and presses a button on his watch, which then sets off, it ignites all the bombs that are inside the tower. The tower comes crumbling down, and everyone gets out. We see that the Joker's hand comes up out of the ground, suggesting that he has not perished. He's laughing, but then that laugh sort of dies down as the color on his hand changes from the pure white to more of a Caucasian tan. You didn't notice that?
No, I did, but that's a weird way to describe it, I guess.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't describe my peachy skin as white. Yeah. Like, his is white until it's not. He regains color into his his hand.
He looks human again.
He was human before. He
didn't look human.
He looked like a clown. Are you suggesting that clowns are not human? Oh boy. And his hand then sort of slumps over. I don't think that's suggesting that he has died. I simply think it is suggested that it did exactly what he said it would do, and he is now reverted to a normie. Mm-hmm. He is no longer the mad, prince of crime anymore. And that's really how this episode
it's interesting
ends.
Yeah. It ends in a way that's...
Well, it ends also with all of Gotham on fire.
Right.
And it means that Harley is ultimately won because she has enacted and has gotten Gotham to become nothing but chaos. She is now the villain supreme of Gotham City. But I'm sorry, you were...
I was just saying it ends in a way that suggests there will be another season, that there are many things unresolved, but it could simply be, there is triumph here. There's the resurrection of Poison Ivy, which is great. I knew she would come back, but I didn't know how. We did lose Scarecrow.
And we lost him bad.
Because
his head exploded.
I thought about this. How are they going to bring Scarecrow back? And I don't know if they will. I
don't think it's that kind of show. I think there are so many villains that an animated series could play with.
Yeah.
That they don't need Scarecrow. At no point in time was Scarecrow particularly important to this season, outside of the fact that he's the one who had her kidnapped.
True.
Ivy kidnapped to begin with. But most of the rogues are played for comic relief in this series. So I really don't think...
So you're saying that he's dispensable.
Yeah, I think most of them are going to be dispensable.
Okay. Well, that's the end of Harley Quinn season 1.
Yep. What'd you think of this season?
I enjoyed it. The beginning, middle, and end were quite good and had so much psychology.
I'm sure it was only the beginning, the middle, and the end were quite good.
Wait, that sounds weird.
Which parts were not? It was the scenes between.
No, yeah, like the filler episodes in between. So you had like establishing her current character, the processing of trauma from her past, which was when they did that whole episode on going into her memories. Yeah. And then the last couple of episodes on her standing her ground and being able to individuate from the Joker. So I guess what I mean by beginning, middle, and end is that like those milestones, those 3 or 4 episodes were quite good, and the ones in between were entertaining. I think I'd continue to watch the show. Now, this is not what we're covering for next season. Not what
we're covering next. Yep. Let's talk about what we're covering next. As we brought up at the beginning of the episode, and we've talked about in the last couple of episodes, we always allow our patrons to decide what we're going to cover next as an official season. And we gave them 5 choices. Those choices were whittled down to 3. That was Andor, the complete series, Gargoyles Season 1, and X-Men, the Animated Series Season 2. And I can tell you that the poll ended for the second time in the history of the Arkham Sessions podcast. That poll ended in a tie. Okay. X-Men is wiped off the board, and both carrying 41% of the vote, Andor, the complete series, and Gargoyles Season 1.
Okay.
So here's what we're going to do. This is especially helpful because we're doing our Summer of Sci-Fi. So we got a little time, but we are going to put a new poll on our Patreon, patreon.com/Arkham Sessions. Join the $3 tier or higher in order to vote. And our patrons will decide between Andor, the complete series, and Gargoyles Season 1. They have until noon Pacific time on Friday, July 11th.
Okay.
So by the time this show goes up, for listeners, you will have a little less than a week to make your decision. So patrons, you're going to see a poll go up with those two. We're relying on you. Listeners who are not yet patrons, if you want to make sure that the show that you want covered, Andor, the complete series, or Gargoyles Season 1, is our next target for analysis, join our Patreon and let us know. We will announce the winner in the next episode. So that will be, I believe, the week following the July 4th weekend.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So let's thank some of the patrons who have made this episode and all of our episodes possible, starting with Bert Compton, Mike Ficklin, Lindsay B., and Jamiroquai J. Thank you all so much for your help. We really do appreciate it. You can have your name called out by going to patreon.com/Arkham Sessions and join the $5 tier, and that gets you a shout out on this and the episodes each month. So thank you all for your help. Drea, this has been a fantastic season. I'm looking forward to our Summer of Sci-Fi. Our next episode, of course, as you mentioned, will be 2001, A Space Odyssey from 1968, directed by Stanley Kubrick, based on the novel by Arthur C. Clarke.
And it's only 3 hours and 45 minutes long.
It is a lengthy movie, but it is not quite that long. It's going to be fun to sit down and watch this with you. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you're liking what you see, please like and subscribe so that you can get this and all of our other episodes as well. Patreon members, that's the thing that I was going to bring up. Patreon's going to change a little bit. You're going to get a few more perks available to you, and stay tuned for that because our YouTube videos are going to be part of that mix. You're going to learn more about that in our next episode. Until our next episode, Drea, why don't you tell the good folks where they can find you online?
You can find me on my website, drdreapsychology.com, or on socials at Dr. Drea Psychology.
You can find me. I am on Instagram mostly at B_Ward028. You can find us both on Instagram at The Arkham Sessions. Email us at arkhamsessions@gmail.com. And follow our family over at Fanbase Press, Be sure to join our Facebook and all of that. And then, of course, come follow us in our community over on Discord. You can find that by going to the Arkham Sessions Instagram page, and you can find the link there in the description. Until next time, I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Drea Letamendi.
And together we are
the Arkham Sessions.
Wow, that wasn't awful.